Access rights, a right-of-way engineering perspective. ODOT has the authority to control and regulate access to all of Oregon's highways. This authority can come from ODOT's acquisition of property rights from the abutting owners, from the effect of state laws, or from police powers through the permitting process. Private property that adjoins a highway has a common law abutters rights to access to the highway. This is a property right that can be conveyed. ODOT can acquire the access rights to completely prohibit access to the highway or to set conditions on where and how highway access will be allowed by ODOT. This conveyance is recorded in the deed records of the local county. The limited access rights would show as an encumbrance on a title report for the property. In certain situations, state laws supersede the common law rights and preclude the adjoining property owner from accessing the highway. ORS 374.405 states that property owners do not have abutters rights of access to a new state highway alignment. The lone effect of this legislation would probably not be revealed on a title report for the property. Now, the laws and regulations that govern the establishment and operation of state highways are found in the following Oregon Revised Statutes and Administrative Rules. We have ORS Chapter 366, that's State Highways and State Highway Fund. ORS Chapter 374, Control of Access to Public Highways. And OAR Division 51, Highway Approaches, Access Control, Spacing Standards, and Medians. Let's start with the administrative rules. In Division 51, 734-051-0020, that gives the Department of Transportation the authority to regulate and establish rules that pertain to approaches, access control, spacing standards, medians, and restriction of turning movements. In 051-1070, there are definitions that you should be aware of. Number one, access control. That means no right of access exists between a property abutting the highway and the highway. Now, this right of access may have been acquired by the department or eliminated by law. Alternate access means the physical existence of other means to access a property other than the proposed approach, such as an existing public right-of-way, another location on the subject state highway, an easement across the adjoining property, different highway, service road, or an alley. Now, an approach means a legally constructed approach road or private road crossing, recognized by the department as grandfathered or existing under a valid permit to operate. A grandfathered approach means a legally constructed approach existing prior to 1949. Now, a property owner has the burden to prove an approach is grandfathered based upon its existence prior to 1949. Grant of access means the conveyance or evidence of the conveyance from the department of a specific right of access at a location where an abutting property currently does not have that specific right of access. Indenture of access means a deeded conveyance that changes the location, width, or use restrictions of an existing reservation of access. Reservation of access means a limitation of a common law right of access to a specific location where the department has acquired access control subject to restrictions that are designated in a deed. A reservation of access may include a use restriction limiting the right of access to a specified use or restriction against a specified use. A reservation of access affords the right to apply for an approach, but does not guarantee approval of an application for a state highway approach or the location of an approach. Now, right of access means the right of ingress and egress to the roadway and includes a common law right of access, reservation of access, or grant of access. Right of way means real property or an interest in real property owned by the department as defined in the 1999 Oregon Highway Plan. Okay, now in the revised statutes, in Chapter 366, 366.205, Power and Authority of the Commission over Highways, this gives the Oregon Transportation Commission, gives them general supervision and control over all matters pertaining to the selection, establishment, location, construction, improvement, maintenance, operation, and administration of state highways, and all other matters and things considered necessary or proper by the Commission for the accomplishment and purposes of this Act. In 366.320, acquisition of rights-of-way and right of access allows the department, gives us the authority. We can acquire by purchase, agreement, donation, or by the exercise of the power or eminent domain, real property, or any right or interest therein deemed necessary for rights-of-way. Now, the department may, when acquiring real property for right-of-way, acquire all the right of access from abutting property to the highway to be constructed, relocated, or widened. In 366.340, the Department of Transportation may acquire by purchase, agreement, donation, or the exercise of eminent domain, real property, or any right or interest therein, including any easement or right of access deemed necessary. Now, throughways. The throughway system was authorized by the Oregon legislature in 1947 and enacted by the OTC in November 3, 1948, in Resolution Number 5. This system, as originally conceived, was to provide a continuing method of protecting the integrity of the highway system and to provide for a safer and more viable highway system. As defined, a throughway is a highway or street designed for through traffic from which abutting properties have no or only a limited easement and access. Starting in 1948, the OTC designated certain highways as in the state as throughways. Each of these highways was then surveyed for the location of commercial businesses along the route. If any given 1 mile segment of the highway there were 10 or more commercial businesses, then that portion of the highway was accepted as a throughway. The throughway system with the accepted and non-accepted portions is indexed through several layers of mapping. Now this is a copy of actually a very large map, and this shows all the throughway routes. It was originally adopted by the Commission in 1948, and then additional routes were adopted covering probably a 10-year space after that, and they were penciled in. So these are the throughways in the state. There's also a straight line type chart of the throughways. This happens to be Pacific Highway East down through Albany and Halsey in that area. And it shows the throughway portions and the accepted portions of that highway. Now notice in Albany, it shows from Cox Creek up through Station 67 plus 50 or so. It shows that as an accepted portion. And in 1948, that section of the highway had 10 or more businesses. Now, Albany has grown, of course, but the throughway, the accepted portion, hasn't changed. So 374.010 throughway defined as used in 374.005 to 095. Throughway means a highway or street especially designed for through traffic over, from, or to which owners or occupants of abutting land or other persons have no easement of access, or only a limited easement of access, light, air, or view, by reason of the fact that their property abuts upon the throughway, or for any other reason. .015 allows the Department of Transportation to establish and maintain the throughways. Any relocated section of an existing highway and such portions of existing highways which at the time they are designated as throughways have less than 10 commercial businesses abutting thereon, catering to the motoring public in any 1 mile of such existing highway, may be designated and constructed as or converted into a throughway. Now in 035, the Department of Transportation may acquire, by agreement, donation, or the exercise of the power of eminent domain, fee title to, or any interest in any real property, including easements of air, view, light, and access, which in the opinion or judgment of the Department is deemed necessary for the construction of any throughway. Now, 085 and 090, these are deal with agricultural land. So in 085, when we severance of a throughway of agricultural land, wherever by the location, relocation, establishment, or construction or reconstruction of a throughway, real property, title to which is held under one ownership, is severed and land is being used for farm or other agricultural purposes, provision shall be made by the Department for crossing the highway from one such tract to the other, or compensation for the severance of the tract shall be paid. This is our farm crossing easements. Now in 090, destruction of a throughway of access to agricultural property. Whenever a throughway is located, relocated, constructed, or reconstructed through or over farm or agricultural property, and thereby all reasonable ingress and egress have been destroyed, the Department of Transportation shall provide access from the abutting properties to the throughway by service road or by direct access, unless by agreement with the owners of the abutting properties, access to the throughway has been waived. So this is just a farm access. Now in 095, utility roads. So we have any existing highway or section of existing highway is converted into a throughway. By reason thereof, real properties then occupied and used are affected, and such abutting real properties are dependent upon the existing highway or section of highway for ingress and egress. The Department of Transportation shall provide a utility or service road to serve the properties. This is our frontage road authority. And then in 310, this allows the department that we shall adopt reasonable rules and regulations and may issue permits for use of the rights of way of such highways and roads for the purpose described in 374-305. So basically this gives us the authority to issue permits for approach roads. Now, no abutters' rights of access, the 1951 law. 374.405, access rights of property abutting on state highways. No rights in or to any state highway, including what is known as right of access, shall accrue to any real property abutting upon any portion of any state highway constructed, relocated, or reconstructed after May 12, 1951. Upon right-of-way, no part of the width of which was acquired prior to May 12, 1951, for public use as a highway by reason of the real property abutting upon the state highway. And 410, in connection with any acquisition of real property for right-of-way of any state highway, the Department of Transportation shall prescribe and define the location, width, nature, and extent of any right of access that may be permitted by the Department to pertain to real property described in 374.405. So what this means, we have a new highway route. We're taking off from an existing highway, relocating through new lands, a new route. That 1951 law specified that the budding property owners have no right of access to the new route, but we can specify a reservation if needed. So regardless of a property owner's common law rights, an adjoining property owner must always obtain a permit from ODOT to access the highway. In addition to ODOT's acquisition of any property rights or the effect of state laws, the regulatory permitting power gives ODOT full authority to manage and control all highway access. The type of access rights, if any, that are to be acquired are identified and noted in the addenda information for the acquisition file. Key phrases are used that tells the document specialist the specific access language to put in the deed for each parcel of the description. So the access language that is used is none, restricted to highway, controlled the highway, restricted the parcel, controlled the parcel, uncontrolled the frontage road, controlled the frontage road, restricted the frontage road, controlled the highway with future frontage road, ORS 374.405, no abutters rights of access, complete restriction to highway, ORS 374.405, no abutters rights of access with reservation of access granted, joint access, farm crossing, and undercrossing. Let's take the first one. Access control, none. No access control language is stated in the deed. Taking is shown on the map with a solid line style. So there's the addendum note that the writer is going to put in the addendum. It says parcel number, access language, none. And no specified access language goes in the deed. Application of this is all existing access rights, if any, between the grantor's remaining real property and the highway will remain. If ODOT has never purchased any access rights from this property, then highway access will continue to be regulated solely by ODOT's permit process. Now we have access control restricted to highway. So access is restricted to the highway. Alternative access exists on the city streets. The access rights taken may apply to the entire frontage of the highway. Access rights that are taken may be incorporated with a fee-taking parcel, or it may be a separate access-only parcel. So with file 1, we have a small triangular shaped fee take, but we're acquiring the rights to access along their entire frontage. With file 2, it's just an access-only file. There's no other taking. So the note on this is parcel number, access language, restricted the highway with the highway name. That clues into the document specialist. They put this deed language in the deed, together with all butters' rights of access between the name of the highway and grantor's remaining real property. Our application is no access reservations are identified. Access between the grantor's remaining property and the highway is completely prohibited. The grantor's property can only be accessed from another public road or street. This is the method for eliminating access rights between the grantor's property and the highway when the parcel does not span the full frontage of the property. Next one, access control, controlled the highway. So we have no alternative access to the properties that exists. So a reservation access is granted in the deeds. The note for this one is parcel number, access language, controlled to highway with the highway name. The deed language goes in is together with all of others' rights of access between the name of the highway and grantor's remaining real property, except, however, and then we put in reservation language, reserving access rights for the service of grantor's remaining property to and from said remaining property to the abutting highway at the following place or places in the following width or widths. We have the engineer station is identified, which side of the highway, and the width of the approach. So the application of this one is all access rights between the highway and grantor's remaining property with reservations of access. Project team is to provide the reservation stations, which side of the highway, and the width of the reservations. Next one, access control restricted to parcel. So access restricted to the parcel. There is alternative access that exists on the city street. The addendum note, parcel number, access language, restricted to parcel. The deed language that goes in is together with all butters' rights of access between the above described parcel and grantor's remaining real property. The application, no access reservations are identified. Access between the grantor's remaining property and the parcel is completely prohibited. All existing access rights, if any, that are not via the parcel will remain. This is the method for eliminating only the access rights through the parcel when the parcel does not span the full frontage of the property. This is the preferred method for eliminating all access rights between the grantor's property and the highway when the parcel spans the full frontage of the property. Next one, access control, control the parcel. No alternative access exists. A reservation of access is granted in the deed. The note, parcel number, access language, control the parcel. And the deed language is together with all butters' rights of access between the above described parcel and grantor's remaining real property, except, however, and then we have the reservation language with the station, which side of the highway, and the width. So the application, all rights between the described parcel and grantor's remaining property with reservations of access. Project team to provide the reservation stations, which side of the highway, and the width of the reservations. So access to a frontage road is addressed as with access to the highway. It can be restricted, controlled, or uncontrolled. The access language notes for frontage road to be entered in the addenda information for the acquisition are uncontrolled the frontage road, controlled the frontage road, restricted the frontage road. These parcel access notes are to be used in conjunction with a note for the highway when we have a frontage road, either restricting access to the highway or controlling it to the highway. Any access reservations to the highway itself will be at points other than on the frontage road. So the first one we have, access control, restricted the highway, uncontrolled the frontage road. All access rights between the highway and grantor's remaining property with access uncontrolled to a public frontage road to be built during the project or some other public access road. The addendum note, parcel number, access language, restricted the highway with the highway name, uncontrolled the frontage road. So the deed language that goes in, together with all butters' rights of access between the name of the highway and grantor's remaining real property, except, however, grantees shall either construct a public frontage road or provide some other access road on the, and then it's a direction, side of the highway, and grantor and grantor's heirs, successors, and assigns shall be entitled to access to said road for any purpose upon application filed with grantee and issuance of a road approach permit pursuant to applicable statutes and regulations. Said road shall be connected to the main highway or to other public ways only at such places as grantee may select. The application, no access reservations are identified. Direct access between the grantor's remaining property and the highway is completely prohibited. The grantor's property can only be accessed from the frontage road or another public road. Next one is access control restricted the highway, controlled the frontage road. So access to the highway allowed only via a public frontage road. Reservation of access granted to the frontage road. Okay, the access note, parcel number, access language restricted the highway with the highway name, controlled the frontage road. The deed language is together with all butters' rights of access, if any, between the highway name and the grantor's remaining real property. Also together with all butters' rights of access, if any, between the frontage road and grantor's remaining real property, except, however, then we're reserving access rights for the service of grantor's remaining property to and from said remaining property to a public frontage road or other public access road, which grantee shall construct at the following place and the following widths. And then we have the station, which side of the highway, and the width. Application on this, all access rights between the highway and grantor's remaining real property with access controlled to a public frontage road or some other public access road to be built during the project. The team provides the reservation station, the side of the highway, and the width. Next one is access control restricted the highway and restricted the frontage road. And with this one, the access to the highway and the frontage road is completely restricted. The addendum note, parcel number, access language, restricted the highway with highway name and restricted the frontage road. Deed language, together with all butters' rights to access between the highway with the highway name and constructed public frontage road or other public access road in grantor's remaining real property. Application is all access rights between the highway, including the constructed public frontage road or other public access road and grantor's remaining property. Now this one controlled the highway, restricted the frontage road. Access to the frontage road is completely restricted and reservation provided to the highway. The note is parcel access language controlled the highway with the name of the highway, restricted the frontage road. Deed language is together with all butters' rights of access between the name highway and constructed public frontage road or other public access road and grantor's remaining real property, except, however, reserving access rights for the service of grantor's remaining property to and from said remaining property to the abutting highway at the following place and the following widths. So all access rights on this one between the highway and public frontage road or some other public access road and grantor's remaining real property with a reservation of access to the highway. Again, the project team is to provide the station, the side of the highway, and the width that goes in the deed. We do have controlled the highway with future frontage road, and that's the note. And the deed language on this one is together with all butters' rights of access between the highway name, and the grantor's remaining real property, except, however, reserving access rights for the service of grantor's remaining property to and from said remaining property to the abutting highway at the following places in the following widths. So then we have the station, side, highway, and the width. But this additional note says grantee has the right to construct or otherwise provide at any future time a public frontage road or roads or some other access road, whereupon all rights of access herein above reserved to and from the highway shall cease, but the grantor and grantor's heirs, successors, and assigned shall have access to the frontage road or roads or other public access road for any purpose upon attaining a permit from the state under the applicable statutes and regulations governing the same. Said road or roads shall be connected to the main highway or to other public ways only at such places as the grantee may select. Application of this one. The grantee has the right to construct a future frontage road or other public access road, at which time all reservations to the highway shall extinguish, and grantor will be granted a reservation to the constructed frontage road or public access road. Project team to provide the reservation station, side of the highway, and the width. Okay, now we go into access control, joint access. Property A and Property B share a common driveway, and no alternative access exists. The reservation is granted serving both of the properties. The note on this one is parcel access language, controlled the highway, with the highway name, with joint access. The deed language is, together with all butters' rights of access between the name of the highway and grantor's remaining real property, except, however, reserving access rights for the service of grantor's remaining property to and from said remaining property to the abutting highway at the following place and the following widths. Standard reservation language there. Additional note, it is specifically understood that the access rights opposite highway engineer station, and the station is specified, are to be used and enjoyed in common with the adjoining property owners on the, and then the direction, north, south, east, west, who currently is/are, and then the name of the adjoining property owner. So the application with this, the right-of-way agent is expected to provide the width and engineer station for any new access reservation. At least one of the access reservations will be shared in common with the adjoining neighbor. Joint use reservations normally straddle the property line between the neighbors. Okay, now we have farm access and farm crossing. The addendum notes are parcel number, access language, control the highway with the highway name for farm access, or control the highway, highway name for farm crossing. Application on this one, it's similar to a standard right-of-way acquisition that establishes an access reservation, except a specific purpose is identified for the use of the access reservation. The deed language will state that it is either for farm access or farm crossing only. Any other uses will be prohibited. Later lifting of either of these use restrictions will require a grant of access. Normally, there is a clause in the deed for a farm crossing that automatically extinguishes the access rights if and when there is not a unity of ownership on both sides of the highway. Farm crossing reservations should be in pairs at the same engineer station on opposite sides of the highway. Access control 374.405, no butters rights of access, complete restriction to the highway, or access control 374.405, no butters rights of access with reservation of access granted. The addendum note, parcel number access language 374.405, no abutters rights to access, complete restriction. The deed language is, pursuant to Oregon law ORS 374.405, there is no right of access to or from the remainder of grantor's parcels and any highway constructed on the property subject of this conveyance. So the application, this is a brand new alignment. No part of the right-of-way width existed prior to 1951. The default effect of 374.405 prohibits access to the new right-of-way alignment. Okay, the second one, parcel number access language, ORS 374.405, no abutters rights to access with reservation of access granted. Deed language is pursuant to Oregon law 374.405. There is no right of access to or from the remainder of grantor's parcels and any highway constructed on the property subject to this conveyance, except, however, and then we have the standard reservation language. Application, we have a brand new alignment. No part of the width existed prior to 1951. This phrase is used only when ORS 374.405 applies, and there is to be a reservation or reservations access granted. The project team, again, to provide the station, the side of the highway, and the width. So how does this apply? So on property A, they have access to the existing highway. No reservations of access need to be granted to the new alignment. Now, property B does not have access to the existing highway. If alternative access does not exist for the northerly portion of the property, then a reservation must be granted or the property purchased. On the south side, there is no alternative access exists, the southerly portion of the property. A reservation access must be granted or the property purchased. Property C does not have access to the existing highway on the northerly portion of the property. Reservation access must be granted if no alternative access exists or the property purchased. The southerly portion of the property has access to the existing highway, and a reservation access does not need to be granted to the new alignment for the southerly portion. Access control undercrossing. Undercrossing reservation is granted to cross under the highway. The crossing is usually associated with a bridge or a culvert. The addendum note, parcel number, access language, undercrossing. The deed language, together with all butters' rights of access between the name of the highway and grantor's remaining real property, except, however, grantor reserves the right to cross beneath the highway structure at engineer's station, and a station is specified, in widths to be determined by permit to serve remaining property on the direction and direction sides of the highway. Grantor shall be liable for any damage to the highway structure incurred as a result of the exercise of this crossing right. An application with this one is similar to a reservation for farm crossing. The deed language will state the allowed uses for the undercrossing. Any other uses will be prohibited. The under-highway road may only be constructed or maintained upon issuance of a permit and in accordance with such permit. If the state constructs the under-highway road during a highway project, the grantor is required to sign an under-highway road permit to ensure proper operation and maintenance of the under-highway road. The use of the undercrossing shall not interfere with the use of the land for highway purposes, and in the event of conflict, the state shall terminate the reservation upon notification and compensation to the grantor. Access control bounded by engineer station. A note for this one, parcel number access language, completely restricted to highway, with the name of the highway, and the direction of engineer station with station specified. Or parcel access language completely restricted to parcel and direction of engineer station with the station. So this method is used for restricting the access rights between the grantor's property and a portion of the frontage of the highway or the parcel. The restriction of access rights is from a specified cardinal direction of a specified engineer station. All existing access rights to the highway or to the parcel, if any outside of the frontage we are restricting, will remain. Okay, and we have controlled parcel number access language, control the highway with the name of the highway and the direction of and the specified station. or controlled the parcel, direction of the station. Now, this method is used for limiting the access rights between the grantor's property and a portion of the frontage of the highway or the parcel. The limitation of access rights is from a specified cardinal direction of a specified engineer station. Access between the grantor's remaining property and the highway or the parcel frontage being controlled can only be through an access reservation. The right-of-way agent is expected to provide the width and engineer station for any new access reservation. All existing access rights to the highway or to the parcel, if any, that are opposite the specified direction of the engineer station will remain. And that concludes access rights. For more information on right-of-way engineering, refer to the Right-of-Way Engineering Manual, available on the ODOT website.